Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating history of how the Industrial Revolution spread across the globe. On this first slide, you'll see the title, The Global Spread of the Industrial Revolution, with a focus on how industrialization goes everywhere. Over the course of this presentation, we'll look at how this transformative period affected different regions and reshaped the world as we know it. So, let's dive in and discover the incredible reach of industrialization. Global conditions were a big factor in driving the Industrial Revolution forward. These conditions, such as advancements in agriculture and transportation, were pushing innovation outward across regions. You see, as these improvements took hold, they created an environment where new ideas could flourish. England, in particular, became a hub of activity. It was becoming increasingly crowded, which meant there was a growing demand for goods and new ways to produce them. This crowding, combined with the need for more efficient manufacturing, led to the development of factory designs that revolutionized production methods. Now, these new ideas didn't stay confined within England. Businessmen and entrepreneurs emigrated with their innovations, spreading the Industrial Revolution beyond borders. This dissemination of ideas and technology was crucial in making the revolution a truly global phenomenon. So, in essence, the Industrial Revolution spread because of these interconnected factors: favorable conditions, urban crowding, innovative factory designs, and the movement of business people with new ideas. All of this contributed to a major transformation in how the world operated economically and socially. Let's take a closer look at some of the key resources that fueled America's rapid growth. First, there was a massive supply of laborers coming from farms and through immigration. This influx of workers provided the manpower necessary to build industries, railroads, and cities. Without this large and diverse workforce, the expansion wouldn't have been possible. Next, we have rich deposits of coal and iron ore. These natural resources were essential because they powered the growth of industries like steel production and energy generation. They really served as the backbone of America's industrial boom. Additionally, fast-flowing rivers played a crucial role by providing early power sources. Before widespread electricity, these rivers powered mills and factories, helping industries operate more efficiently and at a larger scale. All of these factors, abundant labor, natural resources, and water power, come together to form what we can call America's perfect resources. They created the foundation for the country's rapid industrialization and economic expansion. So, during this period, the United States was really focused on building its own industries. The idea was to become more self-sufficient and less dependent on imports. This drive was actually compelled by external events, like Britain's actions during the War of 1812. When Britain blockaded American ports, it forced the U.S. to innovate domestically and develop its own manufacturing capabilities. This blockade essentially stopped international trade for a while, which pushed Americans to produce goods locally instead of relying on imported products. It's a perfect example of how a conflict can actually lead to growth, by forcing us to adapt and grow our own industries. So, in the bigger picture, these challenges and conflicts really served as catalysts for economic growth and industrial development in the United States. It's a powerful reminder of how adversity can sometimes accelerate progress. He brought the secrets of the textile industry to the United States. Samuel Slater emigrated in 1789, and what's remarkable is that he built a spinning machine entirely from memory. Britain actually forbade engineers and mechanics from leaving the country to protect their industrial secrets. Because of this, Slater's knowledge was essentially smuggled out, an act of industrial espionage, if you will. This sneaky transfer of technology played a key role in kickstarting America's industrial revolution. It highlights how important innovation and resourcefulness were during this period, especially when nations tried to control technological advances. So, Slater's story isn't just about one man. It's about the broader theme of how industry and ideas crossed borders, often through clandestine means. Now, let's take a closer look at the landscape during this transformative period. As you can see, these towns really started to change, becoming centers of industry and innovation. Lowell, in particular, became a model center for this shift, an example of how a small town could evolve rapidly thanks to new manufacturing opportunities. This change was driven by the opening of the first factory, which was a significant milestone. Moses Brown was the entrepreneur who opened this pioneering factory, marking the beginning of a booming industrial era. As these factories grew, so did the towns around them. They transformed from simple communities into bustling hubs of activity, with people flocking in search of work and new opportunities. So, in essence, this slide highlights how the landscape of these towns was fundamentally reshaped by industrialization, turning them into the thriving factory towns we recognize today. This evolution is central to understanding the broader economic and social changes happening during this period. So, here we see the role of supervisors who were responsible for ensuring proper conduct among the workers. It was crucial to have someone overseeing the daily activities to maintain order and discipline. Next, let's talk about the working conditions. The workers, including many young women, often worked long hours, up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was a demanding schedule, but they continued working for better salaries and the hope of gaining some measure of freedom. Many of these young women came from rural homes, leaving behind their families and familiar surroundings. They often left their rural lives behind to seek better opportunities in the mills, hoping that their labor would lead to improved livelihoods. The mills, or factories, became places where these young women spent much of their time, away from their rural communities. They were often called mill girls, a term that highlights their connection to this industrial environment. All of these points connect to the larger theme of how industrialization changed lives, bringing new opportunities, but also new challenges, especially for young women seeking independence and better futures. Belgium was actually the first country on the continent to industrialize, and it did so quite early. One of the key reasons for this was the presence of skilled workers, who had the expertise needed to operate new machinery and improve production methods. Help from the British also played a significant role. They shared technological knowledge and investment that boosted Belgium's industrial growth. Resources were another crucial factor. Belgium had rich waterways that facilitated the transportation of raw materials and finished goods, making production more efficient. When you look at the bigger picture, Belgium really led Europe in early industrialization, setting an example and paving the way for other countries. So overall, it was a combination of skilled labor, external support, and natural resources that gave Belgium this early industrial edge. So, to understand how Germany learned management, we need to look at some key historical points. In England, manufacturers actually sent children to work, similar to what was happening in the coal-rich Ruhr Valley. This shows how industrialization was spreading and how industries were looking for cheap labor. Now, industrialization started to appear in Germany around 1835, and it was largely driven by engineers and entrepreneurs who recognized the potential for growth. A crucial point here is that Germany didn't develop in isolation. It imported a lot of British equipment, which helped jumpstart their own industries. This import of British technology and management practices played a significant role in shaping Germany's industrial pockets, these concentrated areas of industrial activity. So, in essence, Germany learned management not only through observation, but also by adopting British innovations and techniques, which fueled their own industrial expansion. All of these points tie into the broader theme of how industrialization spread across Europe, and how countries like Germany adapted and improved upon what they observed elsewhere. When we look at the scale of cotton processing, it's quite remarkable to see that some regions, like Catalonia, processed more cotton than even Belgium. This really highlights how quickly industrial activity expanded across different parts of Europe. In Catalonia, for example, mechanized textile production became a major industry, allowing for faster and more efficient manufacturing. Moving north, northern Italy developed a strong spinning industry, which was essential for producing yarn and textiles at a larger scale. These developments are part of the broader story of expansion across the continent, where different regions specialized and contributed to the overall growth of the textile industry. This slide underscores how industrialization was not confined to one area, but was a widespread transformation, shaping the economic landscape of Europe during this period. After 1850, France experienced the creation of a thriving national market, which really helped unify the country economically. One of the key drivers of this growth was the expansion of railroads, connecting different regions and making trade and movement much more efficient. Because of these developments, France's economy remained strong and stable throughout this period. Agriculture also played a significant role, gradually modernizing and improving productivity. It's important to note that France's industrialization progressed slowly compared to some other countries, but it was steady and measured. This cautious approach helped France avoid the major social problems that often come with rapid industrial change, like extreme inequality or unrest. Overall, France's measured growth during this time allowed the country to modernize its economy without sacrificing social stability, which was a smart and sustainable approach. This steady progress fits into the larger theme of how gradual and thoughtful development can lead to lasting stability and prosperity. So, as we look at the global impact of industrialization, it truly spread across the globe, touching every continent and transforming societies everywhere. When we talk about health and wealth, we see that industrialization eventually raised the standard of living for many, but it also created new challenges. It increased the demand for resources and markets, fueling the drive for imperialism. Countries sought to acquire raw materials and new markets to sustain their industries and grow their economies. This push for expansion gave rise to a significant wealth gap between nations. Some countries benefited immensely, becoming industrial powerhouses, while others lagged behind. And as a result, the widening of this wealth gap, this disparity, was a direct consequence of the industrial era's competitive nature. Ultimately, industrialization transformed the world forever. It reshaped economies, societies, and even global power dynamics, setting the stage for the modern world we live in today.